Good morning. Okay, I'm going through a draft of a function report provided by a person who wanted it reviewed to see if it could be improved upon. So at the behest of others and with permission, even though there's no identifying information whatsoever, we're going to do this flat out right here, okay? I'm not going to show it to you because it has personally identifying information on it. But let's get to it. I'm looking in particular right now at question number 5. And that's the one that says, how do your illnesses, injuries, or conditions limit your ability to work? Give me 1 second. I just want to make this a little bigger for reading purposes. Goodness gracious. Okay. A little bigger. That's because I'm blind, guys. Okay. The response was that she is in pain every day throughout the day. Now, that doesn't actually say what that pain prevents, because a lot of people deal with some degree of pain throughout their workday. So I would suggest that it would be something different, such as, how does that pain affect the physical things like lifting? Is it restricted? Standing, walking? Does it require that the person today, now that the person's not working, get off their feet, get off their duff, go to a recliner, maybe things like that, depending on what the situation is. But just speaking of pain doesn't exactly say what or if that pain prevents certain activities, right? So I would probably mention how it affects certain activities that would, even if the person's not working now, and some people think they have to be talking about their old job. No, it's about how it affects your ability to do activities, which would, after they connect the dots, show that they couldn't do that on a job either. So you could just talk about how it affects physical activities. And if you're curious about which physical activities they're referring to, because that's a very open book, consider looking at number 20 in the function report and go off those. How does it affect those? I would also suggest this person put everything in full, complete sentences. Given the space constraints, I would probably do it in phrases instead and not put it in full, complete sentences. I am in pain every day. This is going to be a judgment call, but if it can be short and things can be short and generally speaking, I would do it. You're trying to get the substance across. You're not writing an essay that's going to go for a Nobel Prize. Then the person, she says that she worked in construction manual labor. Now that is not, I wouldn't put that in there at all. That's elsewhere. That information is elsewhere. And again, I think what her point was, that's what she considers work. Therefore, she's explaining what she has now, trying to give the implication that why she couldn't do that work. But remember, when they say work, they mean all sorts of jobs. That's why you want to look to the physical and in other instances, mental symptoms due to medical impairments that would limit the activities inherent, not just in that job and in every job. And that's why I refer you to number 20 if you're not sure about, well, what kind of physical activities? How broad or narrow are we going? And you'll see. She has a pacemaker. And this is okay. It limits ability to work with certain tools. That will eliminate a very small amount of jobs, such as the ones that use those tools. So while it is true and accurate, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be said, but it's not going to knock out most jobs. It's not going to be that relevant. So I would either shorten that up or maybe not include it here. Although obviously it makes sense, right? Also, she talks about blood thinners and that there's worries about doing labor because potential bleeding if there's like a nick or a cut. That is probably not going to be very helpful here because it's too nitpicky. Again, people on blood thinners, yeah, I could see you're not going to be working with knives and stuff, but it's not going to eliminate most jobs. I mean, how many of us are on blood thinners? A lot of people. Again, if you can mention it in 4 words, blood thinners, concerned for injury or something. She talks about having diabetes and with maybe not perfect numbers despite medication, and that she has a high risk for infection. That's not really implicating jobs per se. Not the way the SSA generally sees it. So again, these are all things like, it would be like someone saying, well, I get colds easily, so I don't want to go out and get a job because I'm afraid of COVID. That's not really implicating how you can do the job. They're talking about how it limits your ability to work, not your fear of working or fear of being out and about or fear of getting a cut. Those are the fear of getting a cut. I do believe that they would probably, without you saying it, note that someone on blood thinners probably maybe shouldn't be a butcher. So out of the 12,000 jobs, that might eliminate one or a few. And they will draw that conclusion as they seem fit. I wouldn't be putting it here. You want to talk about your capacity to do the work, not the worries about getting hurt if you do it at this juncture. Now this is good. She points out neuropathy in her legs, that she loses balance easily. That's things that actually are physical symptoms, things that happen to her because of her medical impairments. That she can't stand very long because of the numbness and the lack of feeling in feet and legs. That's a big deal. And she could say affects how long I can walk, how long I can stand. It might affect, maybe it gets worse when you're sitting. Being able to implicate sitting and how you're limited in sitting is a big deal for a lot of cases. Okay, so that was number 5 for this person. I just gave you a couple things that I think you want to talk about how those impairments affect the type of work tasks noted in number 20. And of course, if you have mental health problems, if they eliminate, and you'll see in number 20, they talk about following directions, getting along with people, focus, I think it's concentration they refer to as, completing tasks. Those could be implicated and mentioned in here. So 5 and 20 really are kind of connected, even though they don't tell you that. They can stem off of one another. Okay, so number 6. Now we're going to question number 6 on the function report. And here's what my girl put down. She wakes up, she goes to the bathroom, because this question, by the way, is describe what you do from the time you wake up until going to bed. She wakes up, she goes to the bathroom. This is kind of general. Try to help with chores. There is no time frame on that, so that implies potentially all day long helping with chores. I don't think the way that is worded is really helpful. There has to be something different, I think, for it to be more ideal. She says she goes with her husband to do errands, but she usually sits in the car. That is a great addition. You'll go with the errands because, if you've got a tight couplehood, sometimes you want to be in each other's company, but you can't do all the physical things your spouse is doing. So you might be sitting in the car while the spouse goes into the grocery store, right? And then you kibitz on the way home, right? She eats, takes her meds with the meals. She says she socializes with family and friends on the phone or in the house. She takes a shower and then she goes to bed. You know, is the socializing with family and friends a 3-minute text, or is it a 3-hour socialization? I mean, do you have a play date? This is an open book here, and I don't think it's helpful. So I would definitely change that. If you text for a total of 10 minutes throughout the course of the day, you could say intermittent texting with family/friends 10 minutes a day. I mean, you could say that if that's what you want to say. But at least now you're making clear it's a very short period of time. You're not just spending your day kibitzing like you're in the old-fashioned ladies' hair salon, catching up on the gossip. Because that kind of stuff also contradicts when people talk about their pain, pain all day long. Well, when I'm in pain, I got news for you. I'm not texting with people. I'm not having them over. I'm not socializing. So this kind of lends itself to making one think that the first statement about the pain all day long is perhaps exaggerated. And once we do that, we taint it with a little less credibility than we might want. So you really have to look at all these things and connect 6 with 5, which is also connected to 20. Okay. Going back to the trying to help with chores business, again, I would be more specific. Like if you take your dishes to the sink and wipe the counter, and that's your chore for the day, and you want to talk about chores specifically, and I don't really know that you have to, but if you're going to say try to help with chores, just say, contribute up to 10, 20 minutes a day on light chores. Because there is a question down yonder about the chores that you do. And that's where see, all these kind of tie in where they see something here that's not mentioned there, then they think someone's hiding something, or they're going to get the answer from here, even if you didn't put it over there. And now it's left wide open, trying to help with chores. Well, that's a really big, blanket. Doesn't say much in terms of any limitations to trying to help with chores. So you could be climbing on the roof, cleaning the gutters, for all we know. She also mentions in number 6 that she goes to doctor appointments, medical appointments, you could say, when they're scheduled. I mean, I would just keep it like that because obviously that's going to vary. But, yes, on those days, you're not at home because that's where you go, you do other things. Number 7 on the function report. Do you take care of anyone else, such as wife, husband, children, grandchildren, parents, friends, other? Now, as you know, all these numbers I'm going through, we have specific video on each numbered one separately. So if you want to hone in on one more, just go look for the numbered video. It's under the playlist about function reports, do's and don'ts, I think. So here she says, yes, she does take care of one or more of the above. She says she's financially the provider. Well, that begs the question then. You're financially the provider, but you're not working. What income do you have? What are you doing? Are you working on the side? Or is she referring to the past, which I think she is? Financially, I am the provider. She's not providing for anyone right now. She hasn't worked in a couple years. I know she does not have savings. So this is actually inaccurate. She's not financially the provider. She used to be a couple years ago, but she's not now. So why say you are, which is going to lead them, they're going to have this little niggling thing in the back of their mind, potentially, that what is that person doing on the slide that we're not seeing show up in IRS records? Is she working under the table? Is she doing odd jobs, making income, doing some landscaping for people, contrary to that, possible, alleged back problems and body pain. Okay, so number 7, I would kind of do that a little differently in this case. Hold on 1 second, guys. I have got to tell a dog to be quiet. Okay, I am back. And I just wanted to add also, if you're working on a function report and you have your draft down and you want a quick run over with it, I might be happy to do that, like something like this if you want. It would be obviously no personally identifying information, nothing would be seen, but we could go over those answers in a video or live, I suppose. Not that I've been doing that, but we could do that, and then you'll get some critiquing. You're anonymous, of course, but it might also help other people who are trying to, figure out how they're going to do their answers. So anyway, give it a thought. Let me know. Number 8 of the function report. Do you take care of pets or other animals? She says yes. With her child's help, she feeds and cares for them. She pets them and she watches her child walk them. That is not the worst answer in the world because she clarifies it's with help. That she pets them, that's hardly something arduous, right? And that she doesn't walk them because she watches her son walk them. So that can be okay. Because while it's a yes, it's clarified. Some people say yes and leave it at that, or yes, and they say, I've got 4 big dogs and it is really hard. Like they're trying to get sympathy, but they just clarified for the fact finder, be it a judge or an adjudicator, depending on what stage you're at, that they do take care of, oh my goodness, they do take care of big pets. And it's hard, but they do it. And that's a thing. Can you do it or can you not? Is it gotten so bad that you no longer do it? You make other arrangements. Okay. Just letting you know. Okay. Number 9. She says, with regard to the question, number 9, does anyone help you care for other people or animals? She says yes. And then she repeats, my son does most of the responsibility with regard to walking the dog. So she doesn't really say anything else, but maybe that's really the large part of it. She doesn't mention feeding, which above she said the son helps her with feeding. So maybe you'd want to repeat that down on this one, because when there's something that is not quite matching, like you say, he helps you with feeding up here, but then down here, when it asks who helps you and what do they do, you don't mention feeding. You got to really connect all of these multiple ways in which they cleverly get information. So your bases are covered and nothing looks like it's inconsistent. So the only thing I would add to number 9 is, like the fact that she shares that he takes the brunt of the responsibility, but she only mentions that with regard to walking the dog, not about feeding or watering. So if that is true, that the child does, probably a teenager does that for the most part, let it be known. Let it be known that you're not doing it most of the time. But of course, even if you are throwing down some food and some water, that doesn't negate disability per se. So we're not saying that. Everything is just a bunch of little crumbs that get interwoven, throughout the course of a case, by the reviewer, who's going to ultimately make a decision, whether the crumbs add up to are sufficient for an award or something short of an award, just short of an award, and it's a denial. So it's literally got to, that's why I say every crumb that seems like minutia to you can go towards the big cake of award, or it can go on the side of denial. So we just try to make nothing go on the side of denial. And there's things that you can't help. So these are the things you can help. I suggest you make them as best as you can. Then the question number 10 is about what were you able to do before your illnesses, injuries, or conditions that you can't do now? Here she says she was able to walk the dog. Okay, so she's kind of confirming that she doesn't do that or doesn't do it much. Brush the pet, was able to work. I always throw that one in there. Was able to work full time. Was able to stand for lengthy periods of time. Obviously, she's saying she can't do that now. Was able to walk long distances. Some people say I used to hike, now I can't. She used to be able to work with the tools of her trade, which she now can't, which might be alluding to that pacemaker. And tools, I suppose, that would potentially interfere with the frequency. I don't know. Number 11, do the illnesses or conditions affect your sleep? She talks about her neuropathy and restless leg syndrome. That I guess apparently affects her sleep, even though she doesn't say much more about that. And she does say that with the pacemaker, she gets heart arrhythmias that wake her up. Now it's funny that, I don't know if there's any documentation as to how often that happens. Like, is that a nightly thing? Or is that like once a month? Or is that twice a year? She does mention that because of the diabetes, she has to wake throughout the night to urinate. I would probably put down there how many times a night. I mean, I don't know. It's like 1 to 2 times a night considered kind of the norm once we're middle-aged, or is that high? I ask for a friend, asking for a friend. But if she's getting up 3, 4, 5 times a night every 2 hours to go tinkle, that's a lot of sleep interruption just from that. That's not even including pain interruptions or, restless leg. So that might be something you want to specify. On average, 5 times a night. That's a lot of interruption. Now, number 12, personal care. This one is a biggie to me, and we have a video on this one, like we do pretty much all of them, but this one is big because this one says, check here, check this box if you have no problem with personal care. It almost looks like she was going to check the box because there's a little mark in it, but not big enough to actually be a check, right? Like an X or a check. So I think first she was going to be like a lot of people do. I do all this stuff. So they automatically assume no problem. And as I've said before, are these things affected? Do you do them differently than you did when you were 20, assuming you're an older person now? Because age, deterioration, it doesn't have to be from an injury you sustain that you do them differently. It could just be wear and tear. I don't know anybody whose personal care is not affected by their case. And that's whether it's a mental case or a physical or combined. So I don't think this should, I can't even imagine a case where personal care is not affected. The questions in this, as you've probably seen, 12A, we're on 12A, dress, bathe, care for hair, shave, feed self, use toilet, other. So under dressing, she says that the hubby assists her with socks and shoes, and that would presumably be because of the back pain. You could even mention it could be stiffness, people wear these sometimes in different ways. She talks about the hubby helping her. I think that's okay. Some people say difficulty putting on socks and shoes. Some people say no longer wear tie-up shoes or buckle shoes, only slip-ons. Some people say, I've seen some people say, have to use a shoehorn. I know a younger generation probably doesn't even know what that is. Some people will say, I have to sit down to put on my pants. So whatever fits. They don't give you a lot of space here. I know in our form of the formal function report that goes out when we help people put it together, and therefore it's typed, based on what they say. I think we have it where it can be 2 lines. It's like a smaller font, just to get a little bit more communication in there. Because when you're handwriting, like she has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words of only, they're short words. That's all she could really fit. Bathing, she left blank. I have a guess that, well, I guess I would ask, are you showering or are you bathing? Are you doing the same thing you used to do? Are there any handrails or chairs in that shower that you need to use? Do you take shorter showers because you can't stand very long? Do you have difficulty reaching around to wipe certain areas of your body when you bathe? If you're taking a bath, you need help getting in and out of the bathtub. Those things may or may not be implicated, but those are things I would thinking about. I would think by and large with someone with balance problems, which I think she said in her, did she say that in question number 5? Anyway, bathing would be implicated with balance, with stiffness, pain on reaching. So don't forget to consider everything individually as, when you're doing it. Caring for her hair, she at times asks for help to brush her hair. Okay. Shaving, it's left blank. Does that mean she doesn't shave? That would be armpits, legs. It could be face, I suppose. Although that's usually reserved for men, but you never know. She left it blank. Does that mean she doesn't do any of the above anymore? Does that mean she does it and there are no issues? Arms move, no pain. It's not slower. It's not less frequent. It's in no way affected, is what I'm seeing by blank. So that's an open book. I wouldn't do that. I would be more specific. Feeding self. This one is often, now this is left blank. Don't leave blanks. If you have no problem, say no problem. But leaving it blank is unclear. So I don't think you should leave anything blank. Now, if it's I don't answer it because it's actually not part of my life anyway, maybe that would be an NA for not applicable. But feeding yourself, pretty much everyone does that, right? Using the toilet, also left blank. This implies no problems whatsoever. I run into that bathroom, I take a quick squat, and I'm out of there. Who with a bad back does it that way? I don't think so. Think again. Usually we're genteel getting up and getting down. Some people need to pull themselves up with the bar or with the wall or with the sink, whatever's close by. This is where sometimes people will explain that they have difficulty wiping the behind because difficulty reaching due to shoulder impairment. It could be back impairment. It could be arm impairment. It could be girth if we're larger than maybe we would like to be. But oftentimes it's stiffness and getting back there, reaching. So don't be embarrassed to say it. Some people will even include if they have like constipation or diarrhea. That's not really what this is asking for because it's about using the toilet, not the biological problems we have from medical impairments. Those are really important, but not necessarily here. In fact, if there was like an IBS type of problem where you're going to the bathroom a lot, and spending more time in the bathroom with those kind of issues, I would be putting that under number 5. Need to go to the bathroom very often throughout the day. That interrupts the workday. I would also put that under number 6 because they're talking about what do you do all day? Well, she's forgetting that she goes to the bathroom 4 times more often than other people. That is a big deal because the more we're in the bathroom, the less we are on task at work if we were in a work environment. And work environments, by rule, whether or not accurate in reality, is a break after 2 hours, a half hour, a 15-minute break. That would be a potty break if you wanted it to be after the first 2 hours. After another 2 hours, at the 4-hour mark, you get a half-hour lunch. 2 hours after that, you get another 2-hour break, and 2 hours after that, you're going home. So if you're going to the potty more than that, you might want to mention it, okay? Because it is workday interruptions, and employers have a level of tolerance beyond which, if it's exceeded, the person's going to be let go. Okay. All right. Then there's another, and here she puts in that when she has some leg pain, and that could be from sciatica etc. She uses a cane to get around. Okay, so what I'm going to be wanting to see is that there is a cane prescribed by the doctor. If there isn't, that's what you want, not one that you just picked up at CVS without having a doctor recommend or order it. Whether or not you use the prescription, you want it prescribed as being necessary. Okay. So think of that. If you're using a cane that you got because you know you need it, but the doctor hasn't said anything, you're not communicating with your doctor enough. You need that to be in the medical record, or it's not going to be considered medically necessary by and large. Okay. Okay, so that was 12A. Going on to 12B, this is about needing special reminders to take care of personal needs and grooming. This is by and large for people who are claiming a mental health impairment. It could be mild, it could be anxiety, depression, and those kind of impairments often make us less in tune. We don't necessarily get dressed every day. If we're not going anywhere, we're no longer going to the jobs. Sometimes we stay in our jammies. It might be that we don't shower as much as we normally would have considered appropriate. We skip more days. Sometimes it's a lot of days. And you know, if a family member is saying, you know, woo, I can smell you across the room, you might want to take a shower, that would be a reminder. Or if a family member does come in every day and say, honey, you need to shower, that might be something to say. Here she says that her spouse does remind her, not about showering and stuff, but to check her sugar. And she says she has alarms set on her phone for medications and such. A lot of people have the alarm set on the phone. So when you do, I would definitely mention it. That is a reminder system. If you leave out boxes, you know, like the little pill boxes. Now, by the way, she has this under the reminders for care of personal needs and grooming. This is really more appropriately answered under, do you need, this is C now, the next question, do you need help or reminders taking medication? That would be where you'd have the notation about the alarm set on your phone for when to take the alarms. So she kind of duplicated that answer below. It didn't necessarily need to be up on B, but only on C. B is really more about that reminders. Do you need reminders to like be presentable, to wear clean clothes, change, take a shower, wash your face, maybe shave? It really depends on your personal situation, but that's where I would put that. And it usually does have to do with the personal needs and grooming really, I think, really drives home more about the mental health, even if you have like anxiety or depression, even if your other problems are more physical, but you have anxiety and depression, possibly because you're no longer working and you're having difficulty adjusting to this new downsized lifestyle. You know, and if you, by the way, do have the anxiety, depression, or the little adjustment issues, you're hurting your case potentially by not seeing a therapist for that, because those records are really important, particularly for the over 50 crowd. Even if they're mildly symptomatic, the over 50 crowd is where that can come into significant play, okay, due to different laws that apply relative to those under 50. But everyone under 50 or older 50 should be answering these questions properly, because they will come back to bite you if you don't. All right, so going on to 13, meals. What does she say? Do you prepare your meals? Yes, I do. If yes, what kind of food do you prepare? For example, sandwiches, frozen dinners, or complete meals with several courses? She says that yes, she does, but they are small meals such as egg, toast, breakfast type goodies, nothing too major. This is where you would also put, if you sometimes heat up a cup of soup or a bowl of chili, bowl of leftovers, things that are simplistic in nature, that is what I would be emphasizing. Of course, if you do, and I got to get back to my page here. If you, goodness gracious, if you do make full course meals, you do have to be honest about it. But again, if you're doing a full course meal every night, a couple hours of arduous work there and cleanup, that's really going to detract from being, say, you can't do even a light job for 2 hours without a break and then another 2 hours, unless you have really astute evidence that shows you got 2 hours of ability and then you are out for the count for the rest of the day. Just some things that they'll consider. If you can do 2 hours of robust activity in the kitchen, it's hard to believe there will be proof that you are, after that, the life is sucked out of you and you will be doing barely anything the rest of the day. Like lying down the rest of the day, unless you do have that very objective medical record documentation of that. And very, very few people do. Okay, so then it asks, well, how long does it take you to prepare those meals? Oh, it says, how often do you do it? Sorry, daily. That's appropriate. How long does it take you? 10 minutes. That's appropriate, because really frying an egg, that's about it. Making some toast. And that's short. Now that's confirming. It's certainly not inconsistent with someone who says, I can't be up on my feet, you know, doing a job for an hour and a half because I can't even, and it's not like they're doing cooking for an hour and a half. So this is what we'd expect to see of someone who has limited time on their feet preparing, doing anything. It would also apply to cooking. And that's why they ask these questions. Are there any changes in cooking habits since your illnesses, injuries, or conditions began? And she says yes, because she can't stand. So it affects, limited time at the stove. That probably affects limited time at the sink. Yeah, so she said that, not more than a few minutes can I do this. There's a question B to that says, if no, meaning if no changes, I'm sorry, no, that's if no to do you prepare meals, they want to know why you do not prepare meals. So if you do not prepare your own meals, if no, explain why you cannot or do not prepare meals. Some people will honestly say, I never did. My wife has been doing it forever. Or my husband, or, he's the cook and we just eat the leftovers. And honestly, if I was filing for disability, that would probably be my answer, because I have a spouse who does the cooking. He's really good at it. And not that I don't ever cook. Sometimes I get my short hairs in a bunch and I want to get up there and make something. And I do, but it's really few and far between. And I don't not do it because of disabilities, obviously. I just don't do it because I got better things to do, such as working here or just other things, He enjoys it. I don't. So that's something that he does, not me. But if you say you do not prepare your own meals, you either going to be saying I never did and I still don't because my spouse does, or something similar to that, or you're going to say I don't prepare meals because I can't even open the fridge. I'm so weak, or it would be very rare for people not to prepare their own meals in terms of opening a yogurt, making a sandwich. So if you say no to 13A, and this claimant did not, she said yes, but if you do, I think you really need to think through that and be sure. Are you sure you never open that fridge and grab something? Because that's a meal. If you're saying, well, it's just a snack. Well, it's just a snack, but do you ever reheat leftovers? Do you ever make a sandwich? Do you make toast? What you call a snack is kind of like one of the 6 small meals some of us are supposed to eat. So you don't want to really ruin your credibility by saying you don't, because it's going to be really hard for people to swallow that you don't open the fridge and pour a glass of milk. That could be a small meal, or a meal snack. You don't grab leftovers and throw it in the microwave. Those answers aren't going to harm you. So don't leave them out. Don't think they're talking about, because the only reason you would think they're talking about, well, if I don't cook, a full meal, that means I don't prepare meals. No, if you read carefully, it says, for example, sandwiches, frozen dinners, or complete meals with several courses. So any of those above means meal preparation. Okay. And that's when you want to clarify that it's very simple meals. It's reheats, it's sandwiches, it's toast. All right, going on to number 14, house and yard work. She says to the question, list household chores, both indoors and outdoors, that you are able to do. For example, cleaning, laundry, household repairs, ironing, mowing the lawn, etc. She says she does a small amount of dishes. So I don't know if that means puts them in the dishwasher, or if they don't have a dishwasher, washing them by hand, but she is specifying small amount. Perhaps that means when she makes her toast and eggs, she then washes her fork and her dish and her frying pan. She doesn't specify, but at least she says small amount of dishes, so that's appreciated. She says that she does contribute to doing laundry because she will help put clothes into the dryer, but she says she does it sitting down. So my guess is she has a little stool down there or a chair, wherever the laundry machine is, and sits and takes it from basket and puts it in. She specifies she does it sitting down, and that's a good specification. That would be particularly helpful for, let's say it's a front loader and you say you can't bend. Bending is difficult. You probably would be sitting down. I would be doing it. I don't have that problem yet, and I have a front loader. But I can imagine if I had a back injury or difficulty standing, it could be stamina, it could be whatever, that bending can be really, really, really tough. So that might be something where you're sitting, so you're not standing and bending while you're doing it. She also says she'll sweep the deck, the small deck. So that's honest. I don't think that's too terrible. I don't know that that would be inconsistent with anything she's claiming in terms of her impairments and symptoms. So be it. You know, sweeping the small little deck. What does that take? 4 minutes. So, and I'm sure that's not every day. So, that's fine. They ask you then, well, how much time do these chores take you and how often do you do each of these things? She says 5 to 10 minutes tops. So that's good. If you take, here's one thing I would add if it's true. If you do one of those things, say those, small amount of dishes, and then you don't go jump into the next chore, but you're on break now. You're going to lie down in the recliner or whatever you're doing. I would mention that. I would say, like if it's 5 to 10 minutes doing one thing, it could be 3 hours later. I'll do the next one if I feel able to do it. Some days maybe you don't feel able to do it, and you could say on a good day, if I feel better, I'll do another chore in a couple hours for 5 to 10 minutes. If that's what you're limited to, 5 to 10 minutes. That's what she's limited to. It asks if she needs help or encouragement doing these things. She says no. The only thing I would say for that is, and I think what she's saying is, no, I don't need someone urging me to help keep my house clean. I think what she's saying is, I do what I can without encouragement. So I would say no, that she doesn't need help or encouragement because doing the things she says she doesn't need help with per se, because she's only doing a small piece of each thing. But I might actually emphasize that in the space provided for, if she's going to say no, but that's only because I limit it to the small portion things noted above. Or she could have said, yes, I need help. For instance, I can't do all the laundry. I can only do the part of putting it into the dryer or someone else to get it out. Or, so that will depend on the situation. And so it could be a yes or no, depending on how you're going to comment. You see what I'm saying? She didn't leave any comment. I probably would have emphasized that I don't need encouragement to do the things I can do, but I do need help in terms of the fact that I can't do the entire chore by myself. My family member does the other part of the chore, such as the other part of the laundry, maybe putting it into the washer. She says she puts it into the dryer. Maybe someone else puts it into the washer. Whatever it is, but just saying, you could put a little comment that clarifies that you're not doing the full job yourself. Again, you're reemphasizing. D, if you don't do house or yard work, explain why not. She left that blank because she does do house work that she noted above. So that's fine. If you wanted to get wordy, you could say, I don't do more housework because I'm physically unable. I mean, you're kind of saying the obvious, but no harm, no foul. Number 15 on the function report, getting around. They ask, how often do you go outside? She says every day. The next question is, if you don't go out at all, explain why not. Obviously, she left that blank because she does go out every day. When going out, how do you drive? She said she rides in a car. She left blank and didn't check off the other options of walking, driving a car, or riding a bicycle, or using public transportation or other. So that implies the only way she gets around is riding in a car, someone else is driving. And that's fine. If that's accurate that way, if you never drive and it is literally only being a passenger, that's a perfect answer. And I think that is the case for her. When going out, can you go out alone? She says yes. Do you drive? She says no. That is rare that someone doesn't drive, even very impaired people, but sometimes we have that. But here it is. She said no. And the next question is, if you don't drive, explain why or not, why not. They want to know if it's because maybe you don't have a driver's license. Maybe you got it revoked for a DWI. Some people, it was revoked due to seizures, and one of their impairments is seizures. So they could say it was medically revoked due to uncontrolled seizures. Seizures not yet under control. So she really needs to go back because she said no, she does not drive. She needs to explain. Now, if it is because she doesn't have a driver's license, maybe because of some poor choice of the past, or she just didn't renew it, maybe, or she needs to be honest because they specifically ask why. However, if she is also unable to sit well enough in a vehicle due to back pain, leg pain, numb feet, that driving would be unsafe. When you have numb feet, sometimes people can't feel the pedal, and it is really, really dangerous. It wouldn't be the first time someone who had numb feet drove and caused an accident, a serious accident, because they didn't know they were pressing the gas. Didn't feel it, or didn't feel it fast enough. I know this from personal knowledge, not in my family, but it does happen. So if you don't drive because of your feet numbness, you want to say, I don't know, if you don't have a license as well, for whatever reason, you can say, I do not have a license. You don't have to say it was a DWI, by the way. A judge might ask that later at hearing, but so be prepared. But on this, they don't say why you don't have a license. They say, why don't drive? If it was because of the physical reasons, but you also don't have a license, I would probably start with, I am unable to feel my feet and it is unsafe for me to drive because I can't feel the pedals. But you might also, to be transparent and not to look like you're hiding anything, also say, if true, I don't have a driver's license. I no longer have a driver's license, or I've never had a driver's license. But the bottom line is, I don't have one. Why don't you drive? I can't feel my feet, so I would not drive. But I also don't have a driver's license. Get them both in there. Okay, shopping. Okay, so they ask her, if you do any shopping, do you shop? And it's check all that apply. In stores, by phone, by mail, by computer. She says she shops in stores. She says she does not shop by phone, by mail, or by computer. That's unusual. Most people do shop on Amazon. But, not everybody. Describe what you shop for. She says, I sit in the car while my spouse shops. So she's reiterating smartly what she said before, right? That I think, didn't we talk about that above? Now I'm having memory issues. So she's not actually going in the store. She's keeping her spouse company while he goes to the store and she waits for him in the car. And that would be very not uncommon for people with serious walking problems. So when someone who could be sitting in the car opts to walk through the grocery store for 45 minutes, when they're saying that they have pain with standing and walking after 10, that can be, pardon me guys, I have these continuous residuals from that endless upper respiratory infection that went through the house. And my eyes itch. And I've taken allergy medication. And I have one that continuously tears. I don't know if you can see it. So that was a good answer, I think, given her other answers. C, how often do you shop and how long does it take? She says, when I go into the stores, so now she's saying that sometimes she does, it is a few items, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. So the only thing I would say about that is for B above, where it said describe what you shop for, where she said I sit in the car while the spouse shops. Oh, by the way, I should say that's not really responsive. She might want to say which kind of store, even though she's not the one going in most of the time. But under B, she said I sit in the car while the husband shops. She should say shops for groceries because they're asking what you're shopping for, what's bringing you out of the house to go there. Groceries. Okay. But then she slightly changes it up under C when it says how often do you shop and how long does it take when I do go into the store. So under B, she doesn't admit to ever going in the store. She says she sits in the car. So she could have said under B, this might be better, just throwing it out. Usually I sit in the car while my husband shops. Usually covers that base, and occasionally that's not the case. Sometimes you go in. So then C would be okay whenever, when I go into the store, it's just a few items, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah, so I think maybe B should have a usually in front of it. So that here she's saying, when I do go into the store, and then she could also say, which is rare, if it's rare, it's a few items, maybe 10 to 15 minutes total. You follow what I'm saying? You want those two to jive. And again, be responsive. When they said describe what you shop for, technically I sit in car while husband shops is not responsive. That's not about the what. They're asking about what you shop for. I would answer the what, and then I would add this to it, right? For a little clarity and little points, Money. Are you able to pay bills, count change, handle a savings account, and use check or money orders? All of the above are yes. This generally, I think, goes to cognitive memory, ability to do the math, ability to stay on track and pay bills when they're due and timely. So someone who complains of significant concentration problems, some of these might be no. I don't pay the bills, my spouse does. Has your ability to change, and she's able to do all these things. Has your ability to handle money changed since the illness? And she says no. So that does indicate that the concentration issues are not severe for sure. They could be mild because you might, what I would say is if you do allege mild concentration issues, under has your ability to handle money changed since the illness, you could say yes, if this is true. I schedule my bill paying times for when my pain is at its lowest. Or let's say you have a fatigue problem, when I'm less fatigued. So you're saying the change is that you can't just do it whenever. You have to do it at certain times. And that would kind of conform to, someone with pain. We don't usually decide to go pay our bills during our most painful moments, right? So that's taking that into consideration if the shoe fits. 18, hobbies and interests. What are your hobbies and interests? For example, reading, watching TV, sewing, playing sports, etc. This one gets people confused because what are your hobbies and interests now versus what were they before? Presumably, they have vastly changed for most people. So here she puts that her hobbies include watching her children practice their sports, socializing with family members, and hanging out with her pets. So I don't think that's too terrible. Socializing with family, unless elsewhere she said she's become non-socializing, doesn't even like to hang with family, that's fine. We still hang with our family, right? We still spend time with our pets, you know, she said before she pets her, you know, her dog, I think. Now watching her children play sports meaning she does get out and attend that sport event, the practice. So that one will maybe deserve some clarification later on. Because is it a 2-hour event that you go and you sit in a bleacher, a hard bleacher to watch? It doesn't mean you can't do it, but you know, maybe you bring a butt cushion. I don't know. Maybe you don't always make it to the sporting events. Maybe you do it on good days when you're feeling up to it. Other days you just have to bow out, which is heartbreaking as a parent. I know we're always wanting to go to all of our kids' events, right? When they're participating. So I know that's a tough one, but you want to keep that in mind when you talk about attending those events, because that could be 2 hours or more of being outside of your element, being subject to the sitting or standing that's available at that event. So just take note of what that might say if you say you can't sit or stand for more than a certain amount of time. Okay? Just saying, take note. How often and how well does she do these things? She says she does them every day for 2 hours and then she rests. Okay, that's a little, I don't know which one she's talking about. Does she pet her pets for 2 hours straight? Probably not. Socializing with family every day, is that for 2 hours? That could be. You could be doing that while you're in the recliner. Maybe want to, you know, when you're talking about socializing with family, what exactly are you talking about? Or is the 2 hours watching the kid play sports? And is that every day? Games are not that frequent. Is she actually going to practices and watching every day? Now, obviously, it depends on the children's age. If it's a 5-year-old, it's probably required that you are there. You know, I know when I was, what do they call it? Team mom for baseball, when my son was the younger age where parents really had to be there. I mean, the coaches aren't there to babysit your kids when they're acting out. So usually when they're young, parents were there. Yeah, I mean, the parent kind of had to be there and they'd sit in lawn chairs and whatnot. But I think that, you know, if the youngest child is a teenager, you're probably not going to be at the practices. If you're in pain, that would be what you'd be foregoing so that you can buck it up and go to the games. I don't know that you would be going to every practice. I don't know that people do that for teenagers. Am I a bad parent that I don't do that for my teenager? In this case right now, it's wrestling, but yeah, no. Anyway, things to think about with that. The other thing about hobbies and interests, well, we'll get down to that below. So try to be clear on those answers and be direct. Describe any changes in these activities since the injuries, illnesses, I'm mixing up my words here, or conditions began. Okay, so here is good. Here she's talking about things that she no longer does as a hobby. And this is good. She used to do woodworking projects. And now she doesn't do them at all. So this is good. Putting in all the more arduous things that you used to do. And actually the non-arduous things that were kind of, you'd think are simple enough physically, but you can't do them anymore, get those in there. Let's say you used to crochet, but now you can't because your hands. That's not like physically strenuous, but that is manipulative strenuous. Let's say you used to go for a 45-minute walk for fresh air with your friend twice a week, and now you can't. That might be something to put in there, because a 45-minute walk, which should take less than 20 minutes. I'm sorry, I just said that backwards. A 45-minute walk would be, for a regular walker, a little over 2 miles, at least you're showing that you can't do 2 miles. You can't do 45 minutes of walking, or at least you're supporting that if that's what you're saying in the rest of your claim. So the things that you used to do, even if it was for exercise and maybe you didn't think of it as a hobby, I would put that in there. All those things you don't do that you used to enjoy doing. Maybe you used to enjoy going to music concerts, but now you can't do the drive, do the 2-hour, 4-hour concert event because you know you just can't last that long. You have to go lie down. So you could say those things. Got to give it some thought. Think from years back. It might be things that gradually went out of your considerations. And you didn't realize that they were slowly getting moved out because of deterioration over the years, even before you stopped working. You know, we don't necessarily stop everything on a dime. You know, if we used to ride a motorcycle, we might have gradually moved that on out because the jolting or this, you know, it's a lot of focus and concentration, and maybe we don't have it anymore. And that seemed getting a little scary. Yeah, all those things. Think about things even from before you stopped working, before the alleged date of disability, but when things were progressing that you might have started titrating off the plate of hobbies we do. Okay, social activities number 19. How do you spend time with others? The options are in person, on the phone, which she says she does. Email she doesn't do. Texting she does do. Mail she does not do. That would be snail mail. Video chat she does do. And they say, for example, Skype or FaceTime. Those are all fine. The only thing I would, if this, depending on your situation, with texting, if you use dictation texting, verbal to, and it, you know, turns it into the written word for you, I would emphasize that you're not doing the finger stuff. Particularly if you're a person with arm, hand, or finger impairments, possibly even shoulder impairments. If you're a person who says the screen time gives them migraines, perhaps you're dictating your messages and not seeing it and typing it. Oh, that just made me cross-eyed. Anyway, that's just one thing I'd say about texting. If it's dictation texting, I would definitely make sure that's known, because I have seen judges refute the extent of hand complaints based on someone who says they text without really inquiring, well, was that dictation texting or was that fingering? Is that 2 minutes a day or 45 minutes total? 45 minutes of texting is quite a bit. You know, it's all throughout the day. In terms of texting anyway. Okay, so then it says, describe the kinds of things you do with others. And this is still under social activities number 19. This is B. It says conversation. So it seems like all just communicating kind of stuff, nothing strenuous, maybe not going to flea markets, not going to musical concerts, you know. It seems very sedate. So that really does kind of conform with the pain and limitation she's claiming. How often do you do these things? She says that she does them up to 3 times a week. So, and that, she says, is not including talking with her family at home. So that's a good answer. I mean, you know, yeah, we do. We talk to people, if not every day, every other day, people outside the family, oftentimes when we're disabled. If we still have our friends, it might be, you know, if you have kids in school, you might be checking in with teachers or checking now they have portals with schools, but you know, those kind of interactions. List places, it's a C now under 19. List the places you go on a regular basis. For example, church, community center, sports events, social groups, etc. She says she goes to the grocery store, the pharmacy, the gas station, and the kids' karate school. Okay. They don't ask how often. Now, the gas station, again, she doesn't drive. So I almost would want to, even though they don't ask about it, I might sneak in here, grocery store, pharmacy, gas station, when I go with my spouse, just to reemphasize that it's not her. The kids' karate school, how often is that? We don't know. Is that like 5 days a week karate practice? Uh, you know, things you want to look into. Do you need to be reminded to go places? She says no. This one she left blank. Do not leave anything blank. How often do you go and how much do you take part? Totally blank. Now it's kind of the second part is kind of silly, but the first part, how often do you go? This is where you would say, let's say it's karate or sports, the kids' sports practice. Do you go every single time? Do you not go every single time? You really kind of want to, if you don't go every single time, because it depends on the day, you're going to want to make, that's a point to drive home. If you go with bells on, maybe it's something you're going to be a little more sedate about. If, I just lost my page again. How much do you take part? If this is a passive thing where you're just attending, I would just say, I just sit and watch. Sometimes I have to leave to take a break. That means you're interrupting your participation. Like if I have to go out and stretch or sit in the car, those are places where you can put that in there. Still under 19, it's still under C. Do you need someone to accompany you? Now this time, I thought this was asked before. She says yes. Oh no, the other one is do you go out alone? And because she had said she steps outside, I think that was a difference. Okay. Do you need someone to accompany you? Yes. And she says that her husband drives. And they live, the grocery stores are like 5 miles from home and he drives. So I guess, and I don't know why she added the distance of the grocery stores from home since it wasn't asked. And she says she doesn't drive, but she didn't say why. Now, if she was saying, I don't drive purely because of the pain and the limitation, and now she's specifying that the grocery store is only 5 miles away and I still can't do them. I still can't drive there. That could be something. But that's not clear. D, still under 19. D, do you have any problems getting along with family, friends, neighbors, or others? She says no. Therefore, she did not have to go further where it says, if yes, explain. E, describe any changes in social activities since the illness, injuries, or conditions began. New York. She says, let's see. Oh, she has to do a lot of preparation in order to make it to family events. It might be something to explain what kind of preparation. Like perhaps she has to rest up extra the day before if she's going to be going to an event like a wedding. A lot of people do that. They're like, well, if I'm not going to that, I've got to be like completely sedate the prior day. I can't be straining my body. I can't be doing bending. I can't be doing a lot of walking. I'm not going to do chores in the house the day before. Could put that there. Obviously do it, there's limited space. So again, no full sentences. Don't act like you're a grammatical scholar. Okay. You're just trying to get the substance out there. She also says that they stay for much shorter periods of time at these events since this has happened. And that would jive with someone who has pain issues, for sure. It can also jive for people who have mental health, serious depression, anxiety. Here she emphasizes that it is because of pain. And also she gets fatigued. So that would be a definite expectation that you would be shorter on these very long-term events that are sometimes full-day events. Okay, now we're at section 20, question number 20. And remember I said when you're doing question number 5, you're going to want to point to this kind of, right? So it says check any of the following items that your illness, injuries, or conditions affect. I'm going to read them all out to you, just so you have them. And then we'll go through what she says. Lifting, squatting, bending, standing, reaching, walking, sitting, kneeling, talking, hearing, stair climbing, seeing, memory, completing tasks, concentration, understanding, following directions, using hands, getting along with others. Now, for the first 5, lifting, squatting, bending, standing, reaching, she checks all of those off. Now, note that she also checks off walking and kneeling, stair climbing, seeing, completing tasks, and using hands. What's important to note is what she doesn't check off. She doesn't check off sitting. She doesn't check off talking or hearing. She doesn't check off memory or concentration. She doesn't check off understanding, following instructions, and getting along with others. So this is not ideally answered. The only explanation she gives as to the above, where they ask for, please explain how your illnesses, injuries, or conditions affect each of the items you checked. They kind of want you to be specific. I would definitely go look at the video for number 20 because I talk about some things that you don't really want to be specific on, even though they ask for it, because you probably don't know the actual truth. Or you're going to over exaggerate it. Or if you do it, you need to specify that this is on a good day that I could do this. Not every day I can't do it repeated, such as lifting 20 pounds or 10 pounds. Her response is just to say that she's in constant pain. And that the neuropathy affects the limbs. And then does go on to say that the diabetes affects the eyesight. Well, diabetes affecting eyesight was never put in number 5, where it says what kind of things about your impairments affect your ability to work. Obviously, if you've affected eyesight that is not correctable with glasses, that's going to affect certain jobs that require acute vision. So I would mention that back in number 5. So now that you're number 20 and you see these things, you can go back and change your number 5, add to it, add things, whatever. The neuropathy affecting the limbs probably should be a little more specific in that. She does say using hands, she checked off. Is that the neuropathy? Well, then that would also be something you'd probably want to put back in number 5. My ability to, use my hands for any length of time is limited. Fingering things, maybe gripping is hard, maybe picking up coins, or small things. That's really important because those kind of jobs are a dime a dozen. They're sedentary, they're unskilled, and they're going to plop anyone down into those jobs that they can, at least in terms of validating a denial. So I think number 20A, where they give you a very small space to explain how each of these are affected. This might be the only one that I say, if you have to add to it, put it in remarks and go longer. Obviously bad back is going to affect lifting, squatting, bending, standing, reaching, that would be usually attributable to, I think it could be back, but usually it's like shoulders and neck. By the way, reaching in front of you versus reaching overhead. If they always like to chalk it up to reaching overhead, but there's not a lot of jobs, there's plenty of jobs that don't require reaching overhead. So if you have issues reaching out in front of you or holding that out in front of you, doing it for, 9/10 of the day or 2/3 of the day, you want to really, I think, drive that home, that reaching hurts your neck or your shoulders, or you can't do it repeatedly. You could maybe reach out once in front of you, but you can't be lifting a heavy weight out in front of you. These are things you're going to want to specify, and that's why I think you kind of might want to use your remark section for a little more space. Not having a problem with sitting is concerning to me because most people with lumbar problems, back pain, try sitting in a work type chair for 2 hours straight, sitting upright, and let me know how you feel. If you can sit for an 8-hour day, that means that you can do a sedentary job. And you're trying to prove that you can't do a sedentary job, right? So if that's what you're trying to prove, okay. So in this case, I would be inquiring of her, really. So can you go sit at the kitchen chair, would you? And I'll stay on the phone with you for a couple hours, or sit there and call me back when it gets to be too much, and you have to get up and stretch, and then see what happens. Talking and hearing, hearing would be probably about tinnitus, if you have tinnitus, ringing of the ears, or if you have hearing loss. Is your family saying to you, "You turn down the TV, you're so loud," then you might want to get your hearing checked. Garden variety hearing loss is not going to wipe out all jobs, but it is going to probably wipe out some jobs that require very good hearing. Stair climbing obviously goes towards legs, feet, like those other ones, back. Seeing, now this is the first time she has talked about issues with her eyesight due to diabetes. So that could be like a retinopathy or macular degeneration. That needs to be explained better. So like I said, that should be a number 5 as well. And she says affects the eyesight. Well, what does that mean? I mean, do you just need glasses, in which case it's correctable and not an issue? Or is it something worse? Completing tasks. That's good that you checked that off, because clearly if you're doing only part of the housework, you're not completing everything. You're maybe completing tasks is affected, even if you complete the task, but it takes you 3 times as long. You could say so. It might be that you only do part of the task and someone else has to do the other part of the task because it's too much for you. Specify. She doesn't check off concentration, but if you are in pain all day long, don't tell me your concentration isn't affected. I would find that to be very bizarre, and you're super woman. So give some thought to when the pain is at its worst. What does that do with your concentration? Can you pay the bills and balance the checkbook? Can you go through your pantry and make a grocery list when you're in severe pain? Let me know. Following instructions when we're in pain is often not something we can do well. There's a little more of that later. And understanding, that's all kind of melded in there. You may or may not want to say that, understanding is affected, but if things are affected by your pain, concentration, following directions while you're in aggravated pain, I would say when my pain is heightened, I can't focus, I can't concentrate, I'll screw up directions, whatever happens to you. And yeah, this would not be going out this way with this person, because I know a little bit more about them, and I do know that following directions is not the strong point right now. Getting along with others, that would apply if does your pain make you irritable with others? Does it make you avoid being around others? You could say, I avoid spending time with others nearly as much as I used to, because I'm just so, I find that I'm in pain a lot and I'm a little crabby and I don't want to take it out on them. So while you're getting along with them, it's because you're avoiding them. Might be something to share. Next question is still under 20. This is 20B. Are you right-handed or left-handed? She's right-handed. How far can you walk before needing to stop and rest? She says it's limited to 100 feet approximately. So that's a very short distance. And that really speaks volumes as to the short time on the feet. You're going to want to make sure that that is not inconsistent, or other answers are not inconsistent with them. If they are, so let's say you go to the grocery store and you walk 3 aisles in Walmart, that's more than 100 feet. Under shopping, you might want to say, I have to stop multiple times to rest when I'm in the store, under the shopping part that we were talking about before. When they ask her, if you have to rest, how long before you can resume walking? She says she waits until she can feel her feet again, and that the pain stops, and that some days, I guess when the pain stops, she resumes the walking again. And she does say that some days are different than others. Some are worse than others. Some are better. And that is true for a lot of people. We tend to have worse days and better days. And so that's something it's good to share because that will also help explain when you have some inconsistencies that pop up. Like in a medical record, it might pop up that you did go to a concert or something, a flea market one day. And maybe that was the one-off. You haven't done it in 3 years and you tried it one day because it was a good day. You know, you by saying that you have good days and bad days, and sometimes you try to do things that you wouldn't normally do when it's a good day because you haven't done it in a while, even if you keep it vague like that, that might help explain when later on something shows up in a medical record that you went to a flea market when you said you don't do that stuff anymore. No, I do have good days, and occasionally I'll try to do something that I haven't done in a while that I really miss. And sometimes I pay the price for it. Or oh, I always pay the price for it. Or sometimes I do, and sometimes it's okay. I think that is a good thing to share if it's true, because it will, for the skeptical fact finder who says, I see she went to a flea market. That's a lot of walking. Why would you volunteer to do that when you're in pain? Because I have good days and bad days, and I really miss the flea market. I mean, if it's out there ahead of time, it can really protect you. Versus saying it in a defensive way after the fact, like, well, I do have good days and bad days. Well, you never mentioned that before. Okay. Here's this report is a good opportunity to put in the fact that you don't even have to say, it's good days or bad days, or it's some days are better than others. You're not saying that it's a good day pain-wise, but it's way better than other days. Okay, so how long can she pay attention? She just says, I don't know. That's kind of cute. And that's actually honest. That's a really difficult question to answer, because I would say a lot of the times it depends on what's the subject matter. Is it something exciting, or is it something boring? Are you reading your lab results, or are you reading a smutty novel, or watching an exciting sitcom, or action movie? So saying I don't know, I don't think hurts her. If she doesn't know, she doesn't know. Making things up just to fill in an answer is not the way to go. Do you finish what you start? She says no. Good answer. How well do you follow written instructions? She actually says she does better with pictures. Now, I don't know if that means that there is like a reading issue or a learning disability off the top of my head, but that does speak to something. So I think that's not a horrible answer. I mean, it could be more detailed. One could say, I'm not very good with written instructions. I have to reread them a lot. I do better when there's pictures. So that would be telling. How well do you follow spoken instructions? She says that according to my husband, I followed spoken instructions okay. Okay, but how do you feel you follow them? I mean, I'd like to know if she thinks she follows them well. And what if there are 10 steps? Do you remember all 10? Or is it where, I do okay if it's one or two, one or two step instructions, but if there's a bunch of them, I'm not going to remember them. I'm going to have them repeated, or, have assistance. You want to specify that, I think. Okay, H, how well do you get along with authority figures? For example, the police bosses, I feel like I'm flipping words. Police bosses, landlords, or teachers. She says she doesn't much interact with them, but she thinks she does okay when she does, and that's a good answer. Have you ever been fired or laid off from a job because of problems getting along with other people? Her answer is no. End of story on that one then. If her answer was yes, then you're supposed to explain it, and you're supposed to give the name of the employer. And this is getting around to mental health problems. When people have their mental health issues are such that they no longer have easy relationships with coworkers, and maybe you get in altercations with coworkers. Maybe you let your mouth run. Maybe you get tearful on a job and you have to run to the bathroom a lot because of what someone said. Overly sensitive in other people's minds. Maybe if a supervisor gives you constructive criticism or asks you to change how you're doing something, maybe you get upset and it ruins your day and you get off task. Maybe you got let go because you just, too many times you didn't react properly. That would be that. How well do you, or God forbid, sometimes we have people with impulsivity and anger management problems and they punch people's lights out on the job and they got fired. That is something you definitely want to mention. It's supporting the existence of the extent of the inability to control oneself appropriately. Okay. How well do you handle stress? She says not well. A lot of people put that. How well do you handle changes to the routine? She says she tries to adapt to the best of her ability. That does not really say how well you do adapt, though. So if you are aware that you have difficulty adapting to changes in routine, you could, if you are able to, qualify that a little bit, maybe. It takes me a while to remember the new routine, if that's the case. Or I get anxious if it's a change in routine, because I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to, do all the steps now, the new steps. You can mention that. That was K. So we're still on number 20, and now it's L. Have you noticed any unusual behaviors or fears? Yes. And by the way, sometimes they change these numbers on some of the function reports. So you might be, I don't know if you're seeing different numbers on what you're looking at. But the verbiage is the same with the question. So just find the question. And they'll be close by to where they were. Have you noticed any unusual behaviors or fears? Yes. She had passed out, maybe some vertigo, and broke some bones. And so it makes her afraid to be alone, I think, and being afraid of passing out again and getting hurt. So it sounds like, that kind of fear, it is something that she worries about a lot. Everyone's fears are going to be different. I mean, and if you have other fears like fear of close proximity of others, fear of big crowds, which is a little different from close proximity of others. If you have, let's say, fear of germs, and maybe you even have something to the extent that might be OCD, but you're not treated for it. Maybe you're constantly washing your hands. I know we're supposed to all the time, but some people do it 3 times without having touched anything, or it's just a little over the top and it's really interruptive of getting things done. That would also then be interruptive on the job. So anyway, any different kinds of fears. Some people have fear of falling because they've fallen. Some people, if their memory is going bad, they have fear of getting lost. If they were driving out on their own, they're like fear of getting lost, like, even around town, like sometimes you're just blanking out. Whatever it is, put it in. Number 21, do you use any of the following? This is crutches, walker, wheelchair, cane, a brace or a splint, an artificial limb, a hearing aid, glasses or contact lenses. That one almost everybody has. Artificial voice box. I've actually never had someone with an artificial voice box. Can you believe? 20 years. She checked off cane. That's the only thing she uses. Again, I would want all of these things to be medically prescribed. If they're not, talk to your doctor about getting him to prescribe it. Even if you already have a cane at home or crutches or a walker, get it prescribed so it's medically necessary. Yeah. And hopefully you have a conversation with your doctor and it's explained she needs a cane because she has frequent moments of imbalance or weakness, or pain on the left, and it helps alleviate the pain when ambulating, walking. All right, then they ask which ones are prescribed by a doctor. And here she says only the glasses were prescribed by the doctor. So it looks like, being a proactive person, she went out and got the cane that she felt she needed, which I understand that. That's what I would be doing. However, there is a disability claim here. And what is not prescribed and in the medical records that's prescribed is not considered medically necessary by and large. And there's case law that supports a judge not finding it medically necessary. So I really suggest you speak to your doctor about getting a prescription for that. And again, when I talk about speaking to your doctor, I'm not saying tell them that you're filing for disability. I have another video on that. You might want to look into some of the very bad things that happen when some doctors learn that someone's filing, or the doctor's office is filing for disability. There's a lot of bias out there. So you can ask for a prescription for a cane or say, I really need a cane. Can you prescribe it to me? Or a new cane, can you prescribe it? Because if they know you already have a cane, just say, I need a new cane. Can you, and see what they say. Just say, I need it for this, and they'll probably agree. I mean, it's better to err on the side of caution and safety. They ask when these things were prescribed. She has the glasses, they were prescribed, a long time ago. They ask when you need to use these aids. This is kind of important. So in her case, she doesn't use the cane all the time, only when she's feeling unsteady. So what I would have preferred she puts in here or adds to it is, how often do you feel unsteady? Is that 5 times a day or is that twice a year? Is that for a half hour twice a year or is that for 3 days straight twice a year? Or is it like when it happens, it's maybe 4 times a month and it's just all day long, there's some weakness or unsteadiness? Get specific on this one. Obviously, if you use the cane all the time when you walk, like it's just a given, it's like part of you now, you're going to want to say that. Okay. She does say that the glasses are used every day, but glasses are not really a big thing for disability, to be honest with you. And she gratuitously adds in that while she needs to get an updated set of glasses, she can't afford them. They don't ask for that. They don't care. That has no bearing on how the need for glasses will be taken. Does it hurt her that she put it in? Possibly not, but could it annoy an adjudicator who's reading it and going, oh God, here we go. I'm trying to adjudicate the medical and this person keeps putting in all this extra verbiage that's not asked for, because that is not what this is about. Okay. And I know that sounds harsh, but it's the reality. Okay. 22. Do you currently take any medicines for your illness, injuries, or conditions? Yes, she does. And it says, if yes, do any of your conditions cause side effects? People ignore this one all the time. 22. What you need to be doing on this one is going to like one of those drug websites. I know Medline, Med Plus Online, and then there's drugs.com, I think. They all have, you can look up each and every drug. Look for this is what I would do, and I have my clients do. Look for all the common side effects. Common, not the serious ones that you should be calling the ER on, because you'd be calling the ER and there'd be medical records. This common side effects. And which of those experiences do you experience? So don't be thinking like, well, I'm not sure. I do have that dizziness, but I'm not sure it's from the drug. You don't have to be sure. Which effect do you have? You're not the judge and jury or the medical doctor that will say, in all likelihood, it's from the Percocet, or, you're not, and no one can ask you to be. So they can't expect you to do that evaluation. If it is one of the common side effects and you have that effect on your body, I would put it down as a side effect. They're the experts. They can figure it out. You got it. You're just the patient. You have these effects, these side effects. You don't know which drug it's from or which impairment. You got it. I would put it in there. I'd put the drug, name of the medicine, the drug, and those side effects, all the ones that you have. If one drug, if 3 drugs say dizziness, put it down for all 3 drugs. That is what I would do. So like here she's on Coumadin, and of course there's a risk of internal bleeding when you're on Coumadin, and that's a side effect and the only side effect mentioned. I have a strong feeling there's other side effects, so we're gonna have to go into that, you know, before this thing goes out, because there's other medications. So what are the side effects of the other medications? That's what we gotta find out. So this is not bad. In remarks, she clarifies that she is unable to take anything for pain, for illnesses like seasonal illnesses, respiratory infections, because of the blood thinner she's currently prescribed. That's not a bad thing to include here if that's the case, because that will explain. Some people, some adjudicators say, well, they don't even need opioids or narcotics. Like the pain level is just not that bad, apparently. That might not be true. This person can't take that because of whatever, you know, her doctor has said with regard to you can't do that. You're gonna have to find other forms of pain management, which might be injections, might be cold and heating pad and staying off your feet more, being in a recliner more, elevating those legs more, whatever it is. But it's good to say why you can't take a particular drug. Same is true if you're not taking opioids because of fear of the very big dangers we all know about now with becoming dependent, and the hell on earth that's caused. You might want to say, I cannot take the opioids due to risk of addiction. Doesn't mean you've ever been addicted before, but you could say there's a family history, you know, or concerns for addiction. So, you know, we're trying every other conservative therapy to avoid that. Let's see. She also puts in, this is in her remarks, that she has to go get blood work up to 3 times a week. So something is being very closely monitored. Now, going for blood work can usually happen after work hours. I think some labs are open late. I don't know. But if it was something that you have to do religiously, frequently, and it's only available to be done during what is a standard work day, that could really interfere with a lot of jobs. So I would probably mention it. Some dialyses, you know, things like that. But here, going for lab work 3 times a week. This part is unnecessary. Doctors cannot assure me that I won't pass out again. That really is neither here nor there. Because remember, you have to prove that, you know, the burden of proof, like let's say you do pass out 5 times a day. Well, if you have proof of that, so I would do it at your doctor's office, at least to get it documented, or every time you do it, take yourself to the ER or call and report to your doctor, and have witnesses and all that. You know, short of having that, the fear of it is not itself likely going to be very supportive of disability. The concern about, well, I could, you know, I fainted 2 years ago, I might faint again. It's not gonna, the fact that you've gone 2 years without is actually probably gonna work against you. So I wouldn't highlight that, because now you're highlighting something that could go against you. Anywho, okay, so that is it, guys. That's through 22, and that's this particular person's responses and kind of how I would be working with them to get those to be quite a bit more responsive and helpful for a better picture, a better understanding, illustration of what this lady's going through. Okay, so again, I am up for doing an occasional one for one of you guys out there. I can't do them a lot. You can see this is time consuming. I didn't even expect it to take this long. So, and I have to get back to work, but, and I just missed my lunch hour, but, yeah, I'll do it. So if you want to do it, we could do it, you know, video like this, if you want to be in there, and you could text me questions like, but what about this? Or we could just, you could just shoot it over to me and I could do a video, or I could just do the same thing, but do it perhaps live. People have been saying, do it live. I guess they want to ask live questions and I respond at the moment. I could consider doing that. We'll see how that goes. That's not something I'm really familiar with, but it doesn't, if it works, it works. Okay. So I hope that helps. That's a function report in the real, and things that I would change on that person's function report. Okay, I'll talk to you later.